Michael's been in touch on Instagram and he asks, have we got to the stage where it would be a disappointment if Nottingham Forest didn't qualify for the Champions League?
Yes.
I think we are at that stage. Yeah. Hugely.
Nine games left.
And I think it's at a stage where it wouldn't just be Forest fans who'd be disappointed if that happened. I'm sure there are
everyone in the studio would be disappointed.
Yeah,
the whole country.
Well, yeah.
The ghost of Brian Clough.
Let's wind it to the Commonwealth.
Frankie Clark.
Frankie Clark. Yeah, exactly. Unless someone's got a personal issue with Nottingham Forest, surely everyone is invested in them getting into the...
They do have rivals, Jim.
They do,
but that's what I mean, and I'm trying to acknowledge those rivals.
Just so you know, they prefer to be called Notts Forest.
Right, sure. Yeah. Sorry.
And if you want Frankie Clark to come out of that swamp... Get him some Champions. All you got to do is play the Champions League anthem. Yeah. and you see him crawling up the bank.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Someone around the corner with the human net. Right, we got him before he gets into Hooters. We've got him.
Swamp Thing.
Yeah, Swamp Thing.
Clark Thing. I think it would be a huge missed opportunity. Not just a disappointment, but just a massively missed opportunity, a proper sliding doors moment. Because if you're a team the size of Forest, it makes a huge difference with things like revenue, income, how you see yourself. If you can find yourself in the Champions League, it'd be automatic qualification, of course, straight into that big league table. Massive deal for them. And the reason I'm saying that is not to pile pressure on them, but it's just because the position they've put themselves in, it can't really be seen as anything else now. It's not like they've been on the cusp for weeks and weeks, never quite got in there.
They've been in the positions.
Yeah, they've been in there the whole time. And I think they've got Vish has kind of alluded to it there. They've got a fair amount of winnable home games left. They've got United, Everton, Brentford, Leicester, Chelsea. Not unreasonable to say they could win all of those. And I was looking at I was crunching the numbers. Yeah. And you generally need high 60s, low 70s in terms of points over the last 4 or 5 seasons.
Yeah, so they're on 54.
And they're on 54 at the moment. So they win the home games, they'd be right there.
Yeah.
That's assuming they don't get anything as a bonus from their away games. But it's slightly different this season as well, Marcus, because of the way the league table's been and because, of course, it looks likely to be 5th as well. So, it would be unbelievable if they did it, but it'll be such a crushing disappointment if they didn't. They've got to hold their nerve. They've delivered themselves to that position, and now they've got to kind of make it happen.
Yeah, indeed, I agree with you. I think as well, something you alluded to there is that the teams below them can't really seem to put a run together. I mean, I know Brighton's form's been very good of late, but they're 7 points behind them. I think with Forest, they're on the home straight, and something that we said, Vish, at the start of the season, but when Forest was showing this, they were on this, they're having a great season, and I remember maybe it was around Christmas time.
Will Nuno survive?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, it seems ridiculous that you and Jim and another bloke said that he would be the first to go.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. It was just the two of us,
and that other bloke who looks a bit like me.
I said Maresca. So I'm not doing well. They're both in the top 4.
But we thought with Forest, they're set up tactically to deal with any kind of tired legs or any pressure, to play that style of football they do. It kind of lends itself really to grinding out results come the back end of the season.
Yeah.
If
you're comfortable not having the ball, it does.
Indeed.
Yeah, and I suppose the way they've been able to reinforce their squads, I think we've mentioned him quite a few times over the last month, and in part because he's been playing well. But Elliot Anderson is someone who has been able to take a bit more of the strain of not just being defensively sound, but going the other way as well. I think there's a lot to be said for that. Their squad looks deeper by the fact that someone like Nico Williams, who is clearly really talented and does a good job when he starts, doesn't necessarily start all the time. And they have that dexterity to play a little bit differently. Even their stumble, they've got over it quite nicely when you consider the fact that they had a great run in from they've basically been in the, if we take 5th as read as Champions League, they've basically been in the Champions League places. Like kind of actively in control of it since the start of December.
Yeah, which is so it's therefore a different.
Earlier than that.
So therefore it's different to say Bournemouth. I know Bournemouth are 10 points behind them, but say Bournemouth.
But they've reverted to type now.
They have, but I mean, so if we were having this conversation, say, a month ago or 6 weeks ago, Bournemouth
who smacked Forest 5-0.
Yeah, indeed, yeah. If we'd have had that conversation then, I think with Bournemouth you're right to say Forest have always been in those Champions League spots. To then, if you were to finish the season, then drop out of that's a sickener. Whereas Bournemouth, it was always, can we get in there? We're close. And a number of the other sides as well. You could even put Newcastle, certainly Brighton now, maybe dare I even say Fulham are in there. But that goes in Forest's favour. A bit like when we think Liverpool have won the league because 12 points is an enormous gap. But before it was 12 points, it was always, but that relies on Arsenal doing the business. And we weren't confident of that. I'm not confident that Chelsea, Man City, maybe even Newcastle, Brighton, who now you're getting a fair few points below Forest. Yeah. I'm not sure that they have the consistency to make up the ground. So I think
Newcastle just had a massive party, by the way.
Have they?
There's a absolutely real chance that they are like, right, even if it's just subconsciously.
Might take them a couple of weeks to get back.
First domestic trophy for so long. There's going to be a celebration. All that stuff's going to happen. I wouldn't have any particular confidence whatsoever that even out the other side of the international break they could pick it up again. I mean, I think you're right to point out it's exactly the same situation as the Liverpool one at the top of the table. Totally. And Forest have delivered themselves to that position where they can make it happen. They have to do it now because you know what the Premier League's like. This has been an odd season. It might not be that next season.
And they've got some tough fixtures coming up, but we're 29 games in and they're third, so clearly they could navigate tough fixtures. And I don't think that's something that's actually necessarily going to hinder them too much.
They've got two hardish away games out of the next three, but like I said, their home games are all winnable, all of them.
And you're right to say that they're tricky away fixtures, but they're also tricky home fixtures for the opponents.
Yeah, sure.
So you've got to frame it like
Absolutely.
that.
I also think in the age of hedge funds and nation states, it's nice just that an ambiguously shady individual can succeed
doing it for himself
as a club owner.
Someone who you're not entirely sure how he makes the brunt of his money, the bulk of his money.
Yeah. But he has a throne, so there's definitely something unusual going on.
Old school, traditional. Kind of owner.
Hacking cough, cigars. Lovely stuff.
It's someone we could all get behind physically. Vish, you've got the next question.
I do, and it comes from Jack on email. With Man City still stuck in 5th place, are you worried they might not qualify for the Champions League next season?
Terrified for
I'm
them.
not worried.
I was going to say,
the concern levels.
Are you ecstatic they might not? I suppose just before...
Would it be odd not having a Manchester club in the Champions League?
No,
not really.
Cares?
I think there's a natural kind of rate of change. I would say I'd be
trying to get a bit of parity there.
Are you saying Man United won't make it?
I am saying.
You say Man United?
Although Man United could do it through the Europa League.
Imagine that.
Yeah. You say Man
It'd be all worth it. It'd be all worth it. It'd be all worth it if they miss out.
There's a light behind those eyes that I haven't seen all season, and it was.
Because the only thing that'll do, Manchester United getting Champions League football, is a bit of extra money for Sir Jim, a few more redundancies, no doubt.
Just as a little treat.
Yeah.
It's his Saturday as well. just so you know, we're in a situation where Manchester United will have 37 points in April. I mean, that is I don't know how we've turned this question around about that, but
it's not enough to win the league, is it? But Manchester City, that was the question. Are you worried? Or I
think the question is probably, do you think they're not going to do it?
Yeah.
Indeed.
So they're currently 5th, aren't they?
Yeah.
And I think if they keep up their form as it is,
they'll squirm.
That's it. They'll sort of stutter to it. But I think Newcastle seem probably the most likely to pressure them, but it also looks like Chelsea might fall away. So possibly it could well be that Chelsea slip out of that.
It's so difficult to predict though, because
they are.
Teams are changing. Brighton go on a run, suddenly they're alive. Newcastle, we thought were just going to bulldoze their way to top 4, and then they have a little bit of a dip, and you think, oh, they drop it, and then suddenly they come roaring back. Villa on 45 points. If they were to go out to was it PSG in the next round of the Champions League, they'd have to dust themselves off, and then suddenly they were like, right, okay. Although, that's a lot of assumption there. So sorry, Villa, for that. So it's so difficult to predict this,
and also it's very difficult to predict Man City, because every time they they get a good win, like when they beat Newcastle 4-0, that feels like forever ago. They then only win one of the next 4. So it's whenever it looks like they might have turned a corner, you just think, I don't trust this.
But do you know what's interesting though? Because I think a lot of people would find some enjoyment of them not making the Champions League. Would it ruin the Europa League next season?
Probably not.
question.
Probably not. No, it probably wouldn't, because you don't know what Man City you're going to get next season. You don't know what the punishment's going to be. You don't know if the manager's still going to be there. I mean, you seem to think he should be long gone.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think the thoughts are that he may well see out his contract. Yeah,
my concern for them is that they are, as you said, like unpredictable and very, very inconsistent. And I felt like when I saw them against Brighton should have won the game. I don't know if you guys agree, but Brighton should have won the game.
Yeah.
Some player like Ruben Diaz, he looks like he's aged overnight. He looks so leggy.
Yeah.
And Kusanov again. I know that, Jim, I think you were saying he's kind of picked up and he started to play quite well. It wasn't that great against Brighton at all.
It's difficult for him as a young player coming into that.
It is.
And he doesn't speak English either, does he?
Who are the leaders there next to him?
Ortega was abysmal. I mean, it's mad that was. So I think they've got a lot of problems that go quite deep. I think that what's going to benefit them potentially is the same thing in a different way that benefits Forest. It's just such an odd season. It's a real crapshoot to see who ends up. It's almost like shuffling a deck of cards.
It is, yeah.
And you lay them out, and wherever they land, they land.
Yep.
They've got obviously.
I'll take that, Fulham.
Yeah, you would take your chance. Yeah. They're capable of doing it. Of course they are, but no one's really that reliable. And in many ways, you go back to what you said about Forest earlier. Who can you rely on to overhaul them? No one really, for different reasons. So, City have got a storm coming anyway. We know that. We don't know whether it's going to be rain, hail or snow, but it'll be one of those things.
How would you feel it would impact them, though, if they didn't qualify for Champions League, if Marmoush himself can't get them over the line? They have a rebuild this summer. I know they did a little bit of it, if you like, in the winter, but you know what it's like? Look, they're
Marcus,
an enormous...
the serious answer, sorry to cut in, but the serious answer to that question is that people who know a lot more about this than us, a lot more well connected about this than us, are expecting Man City to get a colossal points deduction to a point where they could be in real trouble of maintaining their Premier League status. There's no real build possible if that's the case. Yeah. You can forget about them for the next however many years. Maybe not 5 years, but definitely a couple of years.
But attracting players as well, though.
The rebuild's
Why would you go there?
It's impossible.
Yeah.
So ultimately, it'll be fascinating to see them in the Champions League, but domestically fighting against an insurmountable points deduction. That'd be a really interesting situation, how they manage that, which players still want to be there, whether the coach is going to stay there. The question from Jack is, are you worried? I mean, if I was a Man City fan, I'd be worried about them for a lot of different reasons, and that's probably just one of them.
Yeah, and presumably, I suppose this is the thing, isn't it? It depends when the points deduction is actually coming into play.
Yeah.
Because if it is next season...
2045 if the owners have
Let's just say it's not definite now.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So, I mean, it's very strange. And, the other side of it is because of the nature of the, I suppose, at the time of recording, allegations against them.
Yeah, and look, the points deduction, as you say, there are journalists who think it's going to happen, but at the moment, that's not happened.
It'll be straight away. Surely it'll be implemented straight away.
Yeah, so they wouldn't be in the Champions League. This is what I was going to say. But then also, Champions League football is quite integral to the PSR compliancy and all the issues that are associated with these allegations against them.
Well, indeed. So that's what I mean. Allegations aside, we can sit here and say, well, this is going to happen, that's going to happen. Well, let's say if none of it does, or we still don't know, and we go on and on and on. The fact is, if they don't get Champions League football, as you're right to say, that takes a hit on the finances, and there'll always be if all is well. And there is, and the court case goes their way, or the investigation, then they'll always be able to attract players if they've got a few quid in the size of the club and so on. But in terms of the top level, if you're not in the Champions League and blah, 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 I think it'd be damning for them if they don't do it.
But it's exciting for the rest of us who don't care about them. It is. Of which I include myself as one.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
All right, coming up after this, should we have a Netflix offering for the Premier League?
Dum.
Welcome back to this bonus episode of the Mailbag on the Football Ramble. Luke Moore, you've got the next question.
Yeah, from Chris. Which club will benefit most from this international break?
Arsenal.
You reckon?
I want to ride my
Arsenal. I'm surprised you don't agree straight away with my brilliant point.
Well, just essentially, Bukayo Saka should be available.
There you go.
And Ben White should probably be up to speed in terms of fitness. Personally, I would think it's a good chance for Southampton to try another sport, is it not?
Yeah. Hockey again. Yeah. Like on the Rupert Lowe.
Yeah, I think Arsenal is a good shot, but it is only Saka coming back really at this point, because Havertz and Jesus are out for the season. Martinelli's already
you
back.
forgot about the Real Madrid game, haven't you?
It depends which way you look at it, though, because it depends how many players from each team are going to be on international break.
Yeah, which will be a lot of them for Arsenal.
Yeah, Arsenal got 13, I think. My answer would probably be Chelsea.
Really?
because they've got relatively few international players going away. They've had inconsistent form, so a chance for them to have a reset. Third is available to them. They now haven't got a game till the start of April. I think if you look at the teams who don't have that many, basically it's two things: teams who've got something to play for still, and teams who haven't got that many international players, like Bournemouth as well. They haven't got that many going away. They could really turn their form around.
And both those teams need to regroup, don't they?
Yeah.
No, you're right to say that. My point about Arsenal was just that Saka, so much is made about the lack of striker there. What can they hope for? Well, the hope is that Saka comes back,
but
and
what can they do though?
That would give them a huge lift.
But what can they do in the league? They can't do anything.
But it's the Champions League I'm looking
the Real Madrid game.
So you've got the Real Madrid game,
and
so they've not been on a great run of form. That Chelsea game on the weekend, it was drab. Chelsea was so bad that Arsenal were just happy to kind of keep them at arm's length and just get over the line. And I just feel that you didn't have this break, and you had another Premier League game and into that Champions League game. You can just totally forget
difficult.
about it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So Arteta himself, because you've got to remember the manager. The manager gets a little bit of a break as well, and also he can prepare a bit more. So that's why I think Arsenal, with that Real Madrid game coming. But you're right to mention the teams you also said.
Well, speaking of managers, my answer was going to be Man City.
Yeah.
I think Guardiola could really do this time away.
Well, he said this early on in the season.
Yeah,
it's the only time we've really heard this, that he said that apparently Sir Alex Ferguson used to say at an international break, if anybody wasn't obviously going away with their team, so it was like, right, have a bit of time off. And he said, oh yeah, that's what we're going to do. It's a great idea. And he spoke about needing that rest. And it was the first time we'd really heard that.
Yeah. There's obviously a lot of stuff that's going on in his personal life, which has been documented. It does, he already spoke a couple of weeks ago about the round before last, where he talked about 10 cup finals, and we joked that he was, taking cues from Neil Warnock by saying that. But, regardless of whatever, what happens in the court case, he is someone who probably needs to rediscover his love for A, management, and B, management at Man City. So, I think the break it is an opportunity for him to de-stress, if that is even a thing that he does.
Another aspect of the City thing, kind of the inverse of the Bournemouth thing, is obviously those two teams play each other in the quarter-final of the FA Cup. So if City can somehow rescue an FA Cup win, they can at least go, well, it wasn't a complete disaster because we won the Cup. Both those teams having a bit of a break ahead of that game they'll be fancying it, because Bournemouth don't play until then and don't have that many players away, as I've said. City, for the reasons you guys have said.
What about Liverpool?
Loads of players going away though.
Yeah, but still, in terms of club football, they've entered this period and they're so flat. But so I think they may well benefit. But Newcastle United,
Newcastle are going to be my choice.
What about the fans? You know what I mean? Like if they had that game and then a few days later it was like, right, away to Everton or wherever, something like that.
Luke alluded to earlier, there might be a little bit of a hangover there. We see it happen all the time, but there's this little break now, this little buffer between that, and obviously they're going to have players going away as well. But
they can enjoy it.
Yeah, well, not just so they can enjoy it, but they possibly aren't going to experience those games where you've used up all your adrenaline and it's difficult to sort of get back to the regular gig.
But the enjoyment of it as well.
I imagine Tyndall will be having an international break.
Totally, yeah. Like which club will benefit? Well, the fans. The fans are a part of the club as well. The fact is that they can just let this soak in.
And also the first game back in the league is at home to Brentford midweek, which is a proper nice homecoming.
Absolutely.
And there was certainly a lot of stuff soaking into Pete.
A
lot of soaking to be done.
Just very brief on the Liverpool thing. Obviously, wasn't on the show yesterday. They looked absolutely cooked, right? And they do all need a rest. You can tell that.
He'll start Jones, maybe Elliott in the next game.
It's an interesting extension to the conversation you and I had last week, Marcus, about talk about them winning the quadruple at the start of the season, and you and I said, look, by the time you get to March, it becomes a lot harder. And if you look at if you're going to be kind of perhaps even unfairly harsh to Liverpool, you would say the second half of their season has been peppered by really flat performances when it actually counts. So Plymouth in the FA Cup, first leg particularly against PSG, Newcastle in the Carabao Cup final,
even Southampton.
Yeah,
and I understand they were always going to win that game.
But I wonder now actually if you're obviously Liverpool are going to win the league, but you might just see them limp over the line now. I don't know if it will be a 12-point thing. I think it might be 5 points or something like that, they'll just limp over the line.
But even if it's not that, they could just grind out results and win it.
Oh no, and it would be amazing for them.
But I still
don't think they're not quite the world-beating, all-conquering team, which is weird to say because they at the moment they look a million miles away from a team that's only lost one game in the league this season.
I still think winning the Premier League is not an underwhelming season.
Oh, of course not.
In their context,
of course.
Well, that's the question that people have been asking. I mean, we were discussing that as well recently.
But it's funny that some people think that.
Yeah, I think it's.
I find it funny that some people.
Well, but some people don't. I think that there's specific context with that. I think generally speaking, I always say that your domestic league title is your number one priority.
It's your bread and butter. Yeah,
that's your bread and butter.
Yeah, unless you're Real Madrid. So, but
that's your meat and potatoes.
There you go.
It can be a sackable offence at Real Madrid.
Indeed,
that's your muck and bullets.
That's your patatas bravas and butter.
Indeed,
gambas.
All that, and more. Other languages are available.
They eat their dinners really late in Spain.
Yeah, they're napping during the day. It's ludicrous. That's why they fuck up the 3 o'clock kickoff.
Do you want to go for a break?
We'll carry on, but you want to go for a break?
You need the international break as well.
Could I have a piss break like Pete?
I think in a specific context, maybe after Manchester City win 3 or 4 Premier Leagues in a row, like the Champions League might mean more to them or something. So again, out with specific circumstances. So therefore, if your number one priority, which it definitely is for Liverpool, and even in the specific context of them having only won one Premier League title, I think that it's not underwhelming if your number one priority is achieved.
Sure, and on the day that they win the Premier League, I don't think anyone will be sort of
remembering the league,
moping around going, "Oh, this is all right, I suppose."
Yeah,
I think they'll be in quite a good mood.
Yeah, indeed, yeah. But I take the point that if you're realistically going for 4 trophies and then you just win one, I kind of get that. But there we are. All right, next question from Simon on Instagram. Is it time for the Premier League to sack off Sky and create their own version of Netflix, showing every game live? You got to put TNT Sports in there as well.
Yeah, true.
And
also, if
Prime.
Ami Prime.
Well, they're not going to have it from next season. Yeah.
All right, Ami P. If you want to.
Ami P.
If it's not short enough for you.
I hope it's not like Netflix because you just spend half an hour on it, not finding anything to watch, and turn it off again.
Are you sure you want to watch the second half of Man United?
yeah, exactly. Give it a thumbs down.
I mean, from a consumer's point of view, it absolutely makes sense. It's like,
if it's free, Jim, yes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but so with
it won't be free.
Of course, it won't.
With TNT and with Sky and with Prime, I pay nearly £80 a month to watch all the football. I'm sure you all pay the same because I'm sure you all have.
Well, I hope I'm not paying more than you.
Well, no, I
should
hope
be the
not.
same.
I'm paying an extra £6 as well if I want it in HD, which of course I do.
Yeah. Because have you ever got used to watching HD and tried to watch standard definition? It's pathetic. It makes you angry. You'd rather not watch any telly.
It's like I've lost my glasses. Personally, that's how it feels to me.
I'm over here, Jim.
Yeah, hello. But yeah, I mean, that would be very, very appealing to us, right? You could pay like £40 a month and it would seem reasonable, where you would never pay that for Netflix or anything like that, surely.
Well, what I find interesting about it is the kind of implication in the question, because it was reported just before Christmas that the Premier League have cancelled their arrangement with IMG. So IMG make all the for people who don't know because they're not as nerdy about it, IMG make all the international programming for the Premier League. So basically, we see our Premier League coverage made by Sky and TNT, and to an extent Amazon Prime, as we've already discussed. Everyone else overseas gets it made by Premier League Productions, which is owned by AMG. Premier League have decided to no longer renew that, and it's been there for 20 years. The reason they're doing that is so they can take all of their productions in-house, which some media watchers are suggesting that is a precursor to, at the end of 28-29 season, when the current deal runs out, Premier League may take it all in-house and run it as a streaming service. As the working title for it that people are calling it in the media is PremFlix, like Netflix, but for the Premier League. Now, clever. The attraction for see what they've done there. Did you get a double meaning?
I would have gone for Amazon Prem.
Nice. That would have been very good. The reason that would be lucrative for them is because they're in total control of it. They can ramp up what they can do rather than sell the rights just for a fixed fee, knowing they're just going to get that money, which of course is in the billions. They can essentially try to put in as many subscribers individually from around the world, and there's no ceiling on what they can earn, plus they're in control of their own stuff. I think it'd be really interesting to do that. I kind of think it does make sense to do that.
They could be a bit more creative. They could hire new presenters like me.
But they could do.
Sure.
In 2029.
I'm,
Yeah.
it won't be. Yeah, I'll still be there.
Oh, you'll be on Strictly by then, mate.
Yeah, strictly what?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Strictly non grata.
Strictly not on the telly. The interesting thing about it though is what would happen to Sky Sports.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
Sky Sports is the absolute cash cow.
Collapse
They must be.
completely,
They must be terrified of that.
Vish would love that. A bit more cricket coverage on there.
On where? Sky?
Yeah.
Well, cricket's quite an interesting point of conversation with this kind of stuff.
Not in the
because-
studio.
Doubt it.
for the,
Doubt it, mate.
Do you know what?
Ashes, yeah.
I opened the door a crack there and he just marched straight in. What have I done?
So basically, like,
Go on, Vish, make your cricket point.
the current deal for the Premier League between 25. Same word, wrong sport.
Yeah.
So for
180.
also a score.
Oh dear.
So the Premier League rights for 25-29 are 6.7 billion. And on the one hand, you think, right, that's an incredible amount of money. There's no way they'd want to say no to that. But the reason it is at that price and it's gone over that threshold of what would be deemed as, I suppose, not normal, but that's an eye-watering figure for 4 seasons of football. But the reason they have that is because they have guaranteed viewers. And with guaranteed viewers, it means they can go to a subscription model.
Yeah.
The problem that other sports have is they get when they get their TV deal, they don't necessarily know that there's a guaranteed number of viewers for their particular sport, especially in a sport like cricket where it fluctuates from format to format and opposition to opposition as well. And so, as Luke alluded to there, by bringing it in-house, they can kind of have their cake and eat it too. They can have that product and see all the proceeds from that and also sell overseas to other territories and also still sell to broadcasters in the UK because they'll still want a piece of something. Yeah. It'll be that basically what this Netflix show, in the way that sometimes they have it with in American sports where they have their various different league passes, is you can watch it, but it'll be specific to the territory that you're in. So you'd watch that coverage of that. If it was on Sky Sports 1 and you could watch it in the UK, you would watch Sky Sports 1's coverage of it on that particular app. Right. And obviously it's different in the US because different states have different TV companies and this, that, and the other. But that would be the
well, it's regionalised in the US because they're so big.
Exactly.
Right? So they're not going to realistically show, I don't know, whoever, like the Knicks on the West Coast, because they've got Golden State Warriors or whatever. It's very regionalised. Yeah.
And that's a similar thing happens in Australia as well, to the point that some there'll be cricket on the west coast of Australia, which wouldn't be shown in Brisbane, which is on the east coast, because they, the Brisbane company wouldn't necessarily have the rights for that.
Yes.
That kind of stuff.
Right. It'd be very interesting to see what the actual price point would be. Presumably, they would go straight to a sort of ad model with ad-free version of it, as Prime have done and Netflix have done. Yeah. And I joked earlier that like 40 quid a month would be reasonable, comparable to what we all pay now. But like that would, I think everyone would be fuming at that.
It's worth also pointing out, Jim, in addition to that the new deal that's about to kick in, that as Vish was talking about, runs to 2029. I'm not sure how many people are aware of this, but they now, under the current deal from next season, are going to be showing every single game that isn't a Saturday 3 p.m. blackout. So I think there's something like, I don't know how many exactly there is more, but I think it's almost 3 figures more in games. Yeah. And so when you've got a game that, so sometimes currently it's quite annoying. If a couple of games are moved due to Europa League game or whatever on a Sunday, they're not always shown. There was a Fulham game fairly recently on a 2 p.m. on Sunday that wasn't shown. That's, right, yeah. That's all going to be shown now. So we're actually going to move into a situation from next season where you're going to get loads more games anyway. I suppose maybe from 29 they might think by then they might have got rid of the 3 p.m. blackout as well.
That'll be a big part of it.
But I mean, I think it makes. But I'm not making a comment on the kind of rapacious capitalism of it or whatever. Sure. But from a point of view of owning such a powerful product, it kind of makes sense you want to do it all yourself. I think they've probably estimated it'll take 3 or 4 years to learn what they need to learn and to be able to get the technology and the expertise to do it, and then they can roll it out.
Yeah, I mean, because that's
renationalise the Premier League.
But actually,
the games will be on time, won't they? The games will kick off on time.
But you can watch TNT through Prime as an add-on, and obviously it works through Prime. There was a suggestion at first, wasn't there, that streaming that much live sport is very, very technically difficult, but they clearly know how to do it.
But the Amazon situation is interesting because Amazon got some games, so they've still got European games, Amazon, but Amazon got some Premier League games because the Premier League basically just gave them a little snifter.
Yeah.
And they said, and they gave them really cheap because I think what they wanted was to say Amazon are one of the one of the wealthiest companies in the world. We give them a little taste of the biscuit. Maybe they'll come in and bid even more. They haven't been offered that for this new package, and they didn't make a bid for any of it. So. Yeah. It's how the market's moving and stuff as well.
Have you seen what's happening with Apple TV and MLS? Like
it's part of the subscription, isn't it?
Yeah, but you can get a monthly pass for 15 quid or a season pass for £99. It'll be like that, and also you can pay for individual games as well if you want to watch them.
But that's only until Messi retires.
Yeah,
and then they're going to just cancel the whole thing.
Yeah. They'll fold the organisation. Sorry, fold organisation.
Interesting discussion though from Simon. Thanks for that, Simon.
Yeah.
I mean, who knows? But it's interesting.
Yeah, it's fascinating to think. Could well be a lot more games on the telly, and therefore a lot more presenters needed,
and a lot more Ramble episodes needed, Mark. As well. So
there you go.
Stick to your cash cow.
I'm going to be a busy man. Is what I'm hearing about this.
And back in the day as well.
Well, you're going to be turned down by even more companies. How are you going to get through the emails?
I do not know.
Have you not got any work for the Club World Cup yet?
I getting Pete Donaldson as my agent turned out it wasn't a good idea.
We are getting more anti-woke, aren't we? So by 29, you'll be.
I'll tell you what Marcus would have been raging about seeing Eddie Howe in a photo with Jake Humphrey after the game. I told you to sit in that comfy chair.
Well, indeed, I just finally Newcastle got out of the comfy chair, didn't they?
Yeah.
Oh dear. He said to Jake Humphrey, we actually lost this cup final 2 years ago, and he went same competition.
Yes, same competition. Yes.
All right. Coming up after this, are we seeing the end of the traditional Big Six? Jim Campbell, you got another question tucked up your sleeve.
Andy, a Patreon subscriber, well done, Andy, on Discord has said, are we seeing the end of the traditional Big Six given the vast sums of money teams further down the table can now spend?
I think we've already seen it, haven't we?
So a little bit of context on this. Aston Villa have the 6th highest wage bill in the league, which is higher than Spurs in 7th, and Brighton have spent £236 million on transfers this season. That's the most in the league.
Yeah, I think the Big Six, so for those people listening, we're talking about United, City, Arsenal, Liverpool, Spurs and Chelsea, right? Mm-hmm. That's the traditional Big Six in terms of recent Premier League era or whatever.
We had to expand that, didn't we? Because it was the Big Four, now it was the Big Six.
Yeah. So Spurs have never won it, so I don't know what they're in.
Yeah. Well, I think actually that's what's interesting about it, because I don't think the Big Six really actually refers to league position, does it?
It refers to how dangerous the teams are.
It refers to the teams who bring in loads of cash.
Is it like the Big Five in Africa? Because you think to yourself, because you think to yourself, no, like is it not a buffalo?
You started this. Don't look at me.
Yeah. I'm trying to think.
And five magnificent beasts and a chicken.
No, it's to do with
elephant, yes. buffalo, lion, leopard, rhinoceros.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, you're saying the buffalo shouldn't be in there.
Basically,
buffalo's the Spurs. Spurs are the buffalo.
Right, there you go. But
it's
based on how dangerous the animals are, I think.
Oh, right.
Is it not?
Lovely tasting sauce, though, isn't it?
There you go. You see. And so that's why I think people are surprised. Oh, buffalo. But I mean,
But hippo is statistically the most dangerous.
Yeah.
Because of how...
Actually, sorry, mate, man is the most dangerous animal of all.
That's true, actually, yeah.
Anyway.
No, hang on. It's something for the listeners to think about there.
Yeah. I'm just saying, is there not room for the cheetah in the Big Six? Could we have a Big Six in Africa? Yeah, there you go.
You didn't even plan that. Shall I answer the question seriously or not bother?
I don't think you should bother, quite frankly.
No, I will.
Traditional Big Six.
Well, so, I mean, it's a difficult one because the season has been so odd. And I don't think you should look at it through the lens of just this season. And I'll explain a little bit why using the two examples that Jim's already mentioned. So Aston Villa have spent a lot and their wage bill's gone up. But that's not as big a story as you would think, given that A, they're now a Champions League club, and B, they've recouped absolutely loads of transfer fees to the point where on net spend, they're actually in profit and are the most profitable team currently in the Premier League on transfer. They've made like a £45 million profit or something like that.
They've done well.
Brighton have obviously made a huge expenditure back in their new manager. And this season, they've spent the most in the league, as you said, Jim. But across the last 5 seasons, they're actually 17th in terms of spend. So it's a bit front-loaded at the moment. I think it would probably be surprising if they did anything like what they've done this season, next season, right? So I think it's more the Brighton-Aston Villa thing, I think, is more reflective of the spending power English clubs have when compared to their European counterparts, i.e. they can get these players in. And in Villa's case, it rockets them into the Champions League because they've got a good manager and they're a big club anyway. My take would be like the traditional Big Six that we mentioned are a mixed bag at the moment due to a combination of like mismanagement, odd philosophy, different reasons. Arsenal are obviously fine, Liverpool are obviously fine. Spurs' poor on-field stuff has come home to roost. United are in a shit state due to like catastrophic ownership. City are coming to the end of a cycle. Chelsea are doing a weird thing that no one's really seen before. And the net result of that is that other teams are basically taking advantage. But if you just look at Brighton, I don't think Brighton spending £236 million means it's the end of the traditional Big Six. I think it just means that Brighton have got a load of money because they're a Premier League team and they can buy players from other European clubs because those European clubs can't compete. Brighton aren't going to be in the top six this season. Really, are they? Probably not going to be anyway.
They're also an interesting case given how brilliantly they've played the transfer.
Well, they might be
in terms of these huge sales that they've done over and over again. It's a pretty unique model that they've got to work very, very well. I think it's interesting. It depends how you measure the Big Six, whether that's the sixth top teams in the Premier League at the end of any season in the table.
It's only happened a couple of times in the last 5 or 6
this
years.
is it, exactly, yes.
But they're there or thereabouts, these
so if Brighton do make the top six, it doesn't necessarily mean that much anyway.
Well, yeah, exactly.
It's about the
think
sustainability.
all of the air quotes top six, they can do a season or two outside of Europe, and they'll be fine. Mm-hmm. Where that is possibly different with your Villas and your Brightons.
Villa,
you've got to keep doing it. And get yourself, establish yourself as a global brand and stay there.
I would say
hard.
Spurs are the Buffalo for sure.
Yep.
Rhinoceros probably Liverpool.
Yeah.
Man United are the elephant
in the room.
City are the leopard.
Mm-hmm.
I think. And who's left?
You've got
Arsenal, Lion. You happy with that, aren't you?
Yeah.
Liverpool have got to be the Lion this season, haven't they?
Yeah, I guess this season.
The Lion's the king of the jungle, even though a lion has never ever been to a jungle.
Arsenal were a gun, man, the most dangerous animal of all.
It's true.
There it is. Yeah.
Arsenal are a man.
All makes sense now. Yeah. All makes sense.
If you've got no insight of this episode whatsoever,
right. So
Arsenal are a man.
Look, if we lined up all those animals, right?
Pompey are a fucking shrew.
if you lined up all those animals in some Hunger Games style situation, and you stuck a bloke on the end, and you go, right, you can partner with one of them, and they will fight your corner. I'm not picking the bloke.
No, and I don't know why the hippo's not in there.
Yeah,
I'd bloody love to see a hippo.
Yeah, I'd like to see that as well. Hippos are a bit smaller though than you might think.
Okay,
are they?
Well, I don't know how
they've
big
got big mouths, haven't they?
Yeah. He doesn't know how big we think they are.
Yeah, that's true.
I think we should probably move on.
I'd go for the rhino.
Did we answer that? Not really.
No, I think
it's a shit question anyway.
No, I think with if you can start
Andy,
saying,
the mouse of the savannah. Bad question.
Yeah, you can start saying with those traditional top six sides, as you've already mentioned, that one of them finished outside the top six last season, then another one. But again, they're there or thereabouts. It's about that sustainability.
We're talking about financial reserves, aren't we?
Exactly. Yeah. And Villa, I think, have got the best chance of maybe creating a top seven. Where does this kind of end? Because if Fulham or Newcastle as well,
it might end in Man City being relegated.
Well, it could do, but Newcastle and Villa are the ones you would say.
Well, Villa need Champions League football. They need to qualify for the Champions League next season as well.
But it's
with their league position.
But it's conceivable to think that Forest won't qualify for Champions League next season, right? Again, if Brighton make it, even if Fulham all the way down to Bournemouth, if they get Champions League this season, again, it is conceivable to think that that was a one-off. They obviously will do everything in their power to make it not a one-off, but that's where it is. Whereas with Newcastle and Villa, I think that they are almost like locking in their positions as the 7th and 8th big, the sides outside this so-called top six. If you think to yourself, for the next 3, 4, 5 years, would Villa and Newcastle finish in the top six? Quite possibly. And I think that's where you start to change this seriously. I think they're already kind of disrupting a little bit.
I don't know if anyone thinks about it in this term anyway, do they? It's the big six. Do people still think about that, though?
Well, no, it's kind of. I feel like it's kind of more like online fodder for ridicule and that kind of stuff. Because actually, what it really is, and it's a really shit way of talking about football, but it's basically about brand recognition, isn't it?
It is, yeah. But that's why Man United in 13th and Spurs in 14th is huge. West Ham in 16th. West Ham have done okay of late.
They won the World Cup, didn't they?
They won the World Cup. It was a while ago now, but they won the Conference League. They went deep in the Europa League. They would have started. They were very much looking up the table. Can the new man, which was Lopetegui, push them on and maybe even fight for that Champions League and do what Villa did? Well, look at them in 16th. Yeah, people have kind of said, but it's not as outstanding as Man United and Spurs in 13th and 14th. So I think this idea of Big Six, we don't use that language anymore, but I think it's still alive. I think it's beginning to change. But I think only in the next 3 or 4 seasons, perhaps, will you be able to say, "Oh yeah, that's statistically gone."
Yeah, well, the various financial rules and regulations that have been introduced in
that could be another
relatively
reason.
recent times.
Yeah.
The idea was to essentially make it a bit more of a level playing field, wasn't it? And we are maybe starting to see the beginnings of that.
But it's difficult because it's to make it a level playing field, and I agree with those financial rules coming in, but it also kind of locks in place what's already there.
Sure, yeah.
Interesting. Final question here from AJ Mitchell on Blue Sky. Which team would win the Premier League with 11 of their managers as their starting 11?
Arteta. Arsenal.
Better than Guardiola? Didn't think about that, did you, bruv? Oh, done ya! See that? I did him.
Sorry, but the question presumably
So they have to line up 11 of their manager.
Yeah, as in previous managers,
Yeah,
so you make a team from the people.
You're probably
people
looking, surely Chelsea. Hullet, Vialli, Di Matteo.
Yeah, nice.
And they've had so many.
I read it as 11.
Lampard?
I read it as 11 Guardiolas or 11 Artetas.
I read it as that as well.
Oh, okay.
No. I think it's picking an 11 from your history of
I
managers.
don't know if I can be asked to think about that.
No.
I think West Ham have had about 16 managers in their whole history.
Yeah, and they'd all be...
David Moyes is one of them.
Yeah, Slaven Bilic is in there as well.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
I think if you were going to go for 11 of the same person, I think Arteta. I think
Guardiola. It's got to be Guardiola.
Yeah, I think so.
But Guardiola's old now.
Oh, come
Yeah,
on.
but surely you're having him in their prime.
Arteta can still play, is my point.
All right,
Arteta can probably
Leicester
still-
then. Ruud van Nistelrooy.
He's
that's
a
good
very
one.
out-and-out striker.
He's
though.
not tracking back.
No.
To get the
What's he
goals,
tracking
though.
back for?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think he's got a keener eye of goal than
Can I
Mikel
just say,
Arteta.
an 11 of Ruud van Nistelrooy at Leicester wouldn't be worse than what they're currently saying now. Vardy would be the only one fuming about it.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, actually, 11 Amarims, I'll take that.
Or 11 Nunos, all in goal.
Ooh,
Yeah.
Keepers.
a bit of a goal.
Iraola.
It's a stupid question, AJ. It's a stupid
But
question.
I think he meant from your history of managers.
Yeah, there's too much research
Yes,
into
yeah.
it.
I didn't read like that, so therefore I've not done the research into that.
No,
so
I mean, I read it like that, and I also haven't done the research.
Shame Roy Hodgson's still not managing.
Yeah.
But there we
Yeah.
are. Could have given him a bench.
Yeah.
Apparently.
Yeah. Say something about him looking like an owl again.
No, I won't. Roy Hodgson.
He'd be battered in the desert, wouldn't he?
Would he?
Is it the desert? No, in Africa.
I think we could develop a real proper like
With the other
fantasy
animals.
series, a fantasy series with like Frank Clark as the Swamp Man and Roy on his shoulder as an owl.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just a bit like Geralt of Rivera.
Having to fight
Rivia.
a man
Yeah, a man who's
taking down the most dangerous.
represented by Arsenal.
Yeah.
Yeah, with a gun.
Thanks for listening to the Football Ramble. Part
So resigned to
Part
it.
of the Acast Creator Network. Luke, Vish and I will be back tomorrow alongside Andy Brassel. Do remember to get your tickets for Football Ramble Time Tunnel at footballramblelive.com. As I say, there are still some left for the Newcastle Tyne and Weir Theatre show where, come on,
It's going to be banging.
let's have a little sing-song.
If you are not coming to that after Newcastle won their first trophy
Yeah.
at home, domestic trophy, like 70 years, whatever it is.
Just say major trophy since 1969. People for disrespecting the Fairs Cup, which became
Okay.
the UEFA Cup only years after
all
it.
right, let me do it again. I'll make it more heartfelt. You should really be coming to the theatre name I can't remember in
Tyne and
Newcastle.
Weir.
Yeah.
Tyne and Weir Theatre.
Because it's the first time Newcastle won a trophy since 1969. Something always happens when we play Newcastle. Last time we played there, it was the same night Leicester beat Southampton 9-0.
That's right.
And people in the crowd were shouting out, "Number one!"
Yep.
And we were going, "Ray! We want 10! We
Yep.
want 10!" So it'll be a fantastic night. FootballRambleLive.com to get the last few tickets remaining for Newcastle. We'll have a big party about
Yeah.
the Carabao Cup win.
And you're going to wear a tea towel on your head, aren't you?
Yeah.
Also, we will have the League Cup trophy with us. So if you want to post,
Yes, we will actually, yeah.
You got to buy a
Yeah.
ticket first.
Yeah.
50
And
quid
then-
for a photo with it.
Yeah, well, up front as well.
100 quid if it's with Pete.
You do the photo at the end, but you have to buy the ticket.
Yeah.
Give us 50 quid at the door.
Yeah.
Yeah.
40, wherever you have on you,
Yeah.
give us it at the door.
And,
And
No one's
then
getting cash
at
on them. You got a card machine.
got contact.
Yeah,
And
bring,
you
bring your card
But
machine.
Mark, it's important to note we will take checks.
Okay.
yeah, and also you
Traveller's checks as well if you're coming from
You
overseas.
can have your
Food
photos,
stamps.
you can have your photo taken with the Master of Ceremonies on the night as well, Terry McDermott.
Yes, yeah.
I'm going to shave my moustache
All right.
live in respect of Terry McDermott.
I was going to lie and say that Keegan would be there, but that would be a fire hazard, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, no, he
shame.
can't come. There we are. Bye.